I'm Alpha Trivette. Here's my 5-minute take on the world. Start the clock for you right now and say thanks for listening and or watching wherever you may be. It is deeply appreciated. Been absent for a couple of days. Sorry about that. Did you miss me? Did you really? You're just saying that. All right, let's get to the brain stretcher question for you for today. If you wear Calvin Klein's Obsession fragrance for men, you know what you want to attract, but you're more likely to attract this. What are you likely to attract with Calvin Klein's Obsession for men? We'll have the answer for that in just a few minutes, but right now let's find out what's going on around the world. In the Gulf of Mexico, oil just keeps flowing into the Gulf. Hundreds of thousands of barrels a day now flowing into the Gulf. There are plumes in other places, and BP, by the way, is going, there are no other plumes. They're like they're trying to do this Jedi mind maneuver on you. These aren't the droids you're looking for. There are no plumes. Well, there are plumes, and oil is polluting the Gulf of Mexico to the tune of billions of dollars. People around the Gulf of Mexico whose livelihoods depend on it are losing their livelihoods. Meanwhile, BP CEO Tony Hayward says, God, this is just ruining my life. Man, I can't even eat caviar anymore. It's so bad. Well, sorry about that, Tony. Meanwhile, BP is thinking about declaring bankruptcy. Did you know that? Declaring bankruptcy. You know what that would mean? That would mean that thousands, maybe millions of pensioners around the world would suffer because their 401ks or their retirement plans or their pensions may be tied up in British Petroleum. It has already gone down to $16 per share and threatens to sink lower than that, especially if they declare bankruptcy. It'll go to negative. It also means that you and I, as taxpayers, will be responsible for paying for the cleaning up of the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah? Tens, hundreds of billions of dollars is what that means, and we're on the hook for it. Remember Robert Gibbs, the White House spokesman, said, yeah, we've got our boot on the throat of BP to make them pay for all this. Well, if the throat ain't got no money to cough up, not going to be any money there for you, so good luck with that. 72% of our American public says we're headed in the wrong direction. Rasmussen poll says only 28% of Americans believe our country's going in the right direction. We're doing all the right things. 72% either disagree, think we're going in the wrong direction, think we're going in a neutral direction, or they have no opinion at all, in which case those people are probably arguing over what's the best toy in their Happy Meal they're now eating in their parents' basement. 72%. Now, my public school education and my degree from Virginia Tech tells me that that's nearly 3/4 of Americans think we're not going in the right direction. And think about it. We're spending way beyond our means. In fact, Fed Secretary Ben Bernanke says we are spending money at an unsustainable rate. It's already past $13 trillion in debt. And at the rate we're going, it's going to go to $19 trillion in just a year and a half. Unsustainable. By 2012, the debt will exceed our gross domestic product. In other words, we're having to pay more out in debt that we're bringing in, and you know what that means? That means bankruptcy, just like BP. What a disaster that would be. Meanwhile, Iran, oh, they got sanctions on them now. Woohoo! But it's not such a great thing, because the sanctions are so watered down, it absolutely means nothing. It merely is a bridge to sort of protect them when Israel decides we can't take this anymore, and they go ahead and strike in Iran. It went to the Security Council. And of course, Russia has a veto vote in the Security Council, and they voted for the sanctions. Why? Because there was one little sticking point in those sanctions that they weren't happy about, and that was the sale of some big air defense system from Russia to Iran that would have been nixed had they agreed to it. So that was taken out, and Russia said, okay. Ahmadinejad called the whole thing a used handkerchief. In other words, he blew his nose in it, threw it away. No big deal. Guess who voted against it? Two of our alleged friends. Brazil, here on our own continent, well, South American continent, and then Turkey, that the Obama administration spent literally millions of dollars wooing to try to become our allies when he first became president of the United States. In fact, that was one of his first visits, was to Turkey, to try to bring them into the fold of NATO. Now, no. Turkey, Brazil, not our friends so much. Remember when everybody talked about how George Bush, the cowboy president, was driving all our friends away around the world? You notice it seems we have fewer friends now than we had when George Bush was president? All right. Get to the answer for the brain stretcher for you. If you wear Calvin Klein's Obsession, you're more likely to draw these COUGARs, and not the good kind. I'm talking cougars, pumas, jaguars, wildcats, the kind that will eat you. They did a little study spraying Calvin Klein's Obsession out in the woods, and wildcats flocked to it, rubbing themselves on it and purring and doing all those sorts of things. So if you're trying to attack and get eaten by a cougar, not the good kind, wear Calvin Klein's Obsession. That's my 5 minutes for today. We'll see you next time. I'm Alpha Trivette. See you.